Hello fellow paleo enthusiasts, welcome to the second episode of PaleoTales. Today I will talk about one of the most famous prehistoric sea creatures of all time, the Liopleurodon. I think we all know this cool sea monster from our childhoods. We all watched Walking with Dinosaurs in our childhoods, which introduced us to the awesome marine predator. The show depicted Liopleurodon as a giant 25 meters long super predator hunting ichthyosaurs and snacking up unsuspecting Oistreptus pondylus. Then we did some research on our own online and found out something very confusing indeed. The real Liopleurodon was only about 5 to 7 meters long and in rare cases reached a possible length of 10 meters at the very most. A lot of people felt disappointed or even lied to, which I can totally understand. Many people think the makers of Walking with Dinosaurs lied. But what if I told you that they didn't lie? What if the BBC actually had a reason to show the Liopleurodon that big? In today's video, I want to tell you guys why the WWD Liopleurodon once had a solid basis and why the BBC didn't lie to us about Liopleurodon. So, what is Liopleurodon and how did the WWD one came to be? To understand what I'm talking about, let me first tell you what Liopleurodon actually was. Liopleurodon was a genus of thalassophonian pliosaurid, which were a group of large predatory marine reptiles that lived from the Calovian stage of the Middle Jurassic to the Kimmeridgian stage of the Late Jurassic, about 166 to 155 million years ago. It was a short-necked plesiosaur, a pliosaur, that hunted other marine reptiles like ichthyosaurs or the long-necked plesiosaur Cryptocleides, cephalopods and fishes. It was primarily found in France, England and Germany, as well as possibly Mexico. But let's talk about Liopleurodon's size. To begin, let me first explain the idea of a giant Liopleurodon. The idea that Liopleurodon was a giant marine reptile is actually way older than you might think. To my knowledge, the idea that Liopleurodon was a giant marine creature was first mentioned in 1873 when Sauvage, sorry if I said that wrong, I'm not French, the scientist who described Liopleurodon believed that the animal the single-tooth Liopleurodon was based on belonged to an animal that reached a gigantic body size. Yeah, Liopleurodon was just based on a single tooth. In fact, it might become a nomen dubium because of that, unless a neotype is assigned to Liopleurodon, which would preserve its validity. More than a century later, the theory of a giant Liopleurodon was once again considered plausible, which led to the giant sea monster we saw in Walking with Dinosaurs. But what led to the iconic depiction we saw on screen? A lot of folks have claimed that the main inspiration for the WWD Liopleurodon was the monster of Aramberry. The monster of Aramberry is the fossil of a large pliosaur discovered in either 1985 or 1984. It was found in Mexico and initially interpreted as a dinosaur but later correctly identified as a pliosaur. It was initially considered a juvenile and was also sometimes attributed to Liopleurodon. It was also considered to have a length of 15 meters or even 18 or 20 meters according to some media. However, its size has been revised to only about 10 to 11 meters long. Also, it's now considered to belong to a new unnamed species of pliosaurid and not Liopleurodon. However, it was not the source of the giant WWD Liopleurodon. The WWD Liopleurodon was actually based on a single vertebra that was discovered near Peterborough. The animal it belonged to was considered by Mortel, a scientific consultant of the series, to belong to a giant Liopleurodon. The size estimate given in the documentary was seen as reliable at the time it was made. However, in the following years, a lot of studies disagreed with those size estimates. Liopleurodon was generally estimated to reach an average length of 5 to 7 meters based on more complete remains. Even Mortel himself expressed doubts about the Liopleurodon size given in WWD. Additionally, the true identity of the animal the vertebra belonged to was questioned in the following years. In 2019, 20 years after WWD aired, the vertebra the giant WWD Liopleurodon was based on was finally re-identified and considered to belong to a sauropod dinosaur and not a Liopleurodon. So, the animal the WWD Liopleurodon was based on, the real WWD Liopleurodon specimen, if you like, was actually a sauropod in real life, not a Liopleurodon. This also means that the accusations against the BBC for portraying the Liopleurodon as such a giant are wrong. Don't get me wrong, Walking with Dinosaurs is absolutely terrible accuracy-wise. I don't want to excuse that. It's especially extremely terrible accuracy-wise today. And I respect everyone's hard work to correct the errors. But the Liopleurodon was not based on zero evidence. Contrary to popular belief, it was never a lie. It was just based on a very fragmentary fossil and aged like milk, accuracy-wise, becoming very outdated. Well, this concludes today's video. If you like my video, be sure to give me a like and subscribe. It would really help me. Goodbye, have a nice day.